Disney is at war, but not with who you might think. We like to glorify the idea of a battle between Universal and Disney, the concept that in places like Orlando they're fighting it out for the top spot of being Florida's best theme park destination, but that's not what this video is about. It's a more complex battle, something that has gradually been rising as their theme parks become more and more popular over the last decade, and that battle is that Disney is at war with you. It's a bizarre concept to wrap your head around. Why would Disney want to fight off the very people that keep it afloat? Well, despite the price of US-based Disney theme parks rising rather dramatically every year, they are also continually more popular than ever. After a night at the Hoop-de-Doo Review in 2019 as part of my honeymoon to Walt Disney World, I had the opportunity to speak to a bus driver, somebody who had worked as a cast member at Walt Disney World Resort for a few decades. I pointed out that our trip was specifically planned to take advantage of the February lull, a time that is historically quieter at theme parks because it's post-holidays when most people are either back at work or school. But it was the busiest I had ever seen the parks. When I told them this, they remarked that the parks don't really have a quiet time anymore, and this was for two reasons. The first was that Disney had created a system that when it was quieter, the tickets and group specials were more affordable, driving up the demand for those time periods. The other thing that they noted was that as the economy became more stable, Disney became more popular. And since the 2008 global financial crisis ended, they had only seen crowds increase. Even as somebody who is seasoned with theme parks, these crowds were difficult to deal with. And our experience became more and more draining as our 10-day trip went on. We spent a lot of our time on our phones, constantly refreshing the Walt Disney World app, hounding for fast passes to try and beat the 2 to 3 hour queues for even the most basic attraction. Reservations were gone months in advance, and despite being somebody who can enjoy theme parks by just admiring the scenery and not going on any rides, the atmosphere was stressed and tense. We specifically planned our days to avoid parks with extra magic hours, but it seemed wherever we went, the crowds followed. And this is the problem. Disney is very, very popular. Their brand has grown exponentially to not just cover princesses and unique theme park attractions, but now covers Marvel, Star Wars, Fox, ABC, ESPN, and more. There is barely an entertainment stone that has been unturned by the Walt Disney Company. And that popularity is great for Disney, but not so great for theme park guests. This is where a choice lies for Disney and where the war begins. Should Disney make their theme parks more affordable, therefore allowing more people to enter but with more crowding, or should they make them more expensive and massage the experience for those that can afford to go? This is the battle that they're fighting with us. Every time the prices rise, so do the complaints. Facebook posts, Reddit threads, forums, tweets, and blogs will argue that Disney is no longer affordable for them and that they won't be able to go. Sadly, this is the point. They raise their prices to softly gate their theme parks, ensuring that the capacity is used instead by people that they will know have the money to afford it. Disney is a company driven by data. It's such a big part of their business that they even have a conference for it with the enthusiastically named Disney Data and Analytics Conference, where I'm sure you'll find the most exciting of people. This data is used to determine all sorts of decisions within the company, from movie production to marketing. But most importantly for this video, it determines theme park and resort ticket prices. Whilst their data is a closely guarded secret, something that they'd never let their competition get their hands on, we know that there are specific groups of people that they target to come to their parks and resorts. I was listening to the Disney Dish podcast this week, where they discuss survey questions they got from their listeners. One of them was a survey to their annual pass holders, where they asked them what their annual income was in US dollars. Disney doesn't usually ask these questions, but the range of answers started at under $40,000 US annually and capped out at $500,000. Interestingly, of the 14 selections, 2 of them represented the entirety of the bottom 50% of American households. Keeping those two in mind, there were 4 responses that would help Disney differentiate between the top 4% of American households by income. If you had any doubt about what people Disney were targeting, that should hopefully clear it up. As we slowly exit the hopefully worst parts of COVID-19 with continued post-pandemic record-breaking crowds, we're gradually starting to see a sentiment towards Disney fostered by the public and media, something which has always been there but has never really been a point of contention this large. This is the idea that Disney is wildly expensive. Well, firstly, it's not an idea. Disney is wildly expensive. Mousehacking.com has an article outlining the costs of a Walt Disney World vacation leading into 2022 and 2023, and for a family of 4 to stay at the resort for 5 nights at Pop Century, one of the value resorts with the base ticket, 2 days of Genie Plus, and the other goodies that come with a vacation of this type, then you're looking at a near minimum of $5,731 for 5 nights for 4 people. This doesn't include anything outside of Walt Disney World, such as flights, transportation, or travel insurance. To put that into perspective, you can travel from Hawaii to Australia on a 20-day cruise with Royal Caribbean for $6,435 for the same family of 4, which includes entertainment, food, and activities for all of those 20 days. Also, what I mentioned above is almost the absolute cheapest vacation that a family can have at Walt Disney World, and it's roughly 1/9 of a family's disposable income per capita in the United States at $45,284. Disposable income isn't what it sounds like though, it's just what you receive after tax. Instead, discretionary income is what many consider to be play money. Following the most common trend that households will have expenses equal to 60% of their disposable income, that makes an average Walt Disney World vacation over 1/4 of a family's yearly discretionary income, and leaves just roughly $12,000 for anything beyond the most basic needs, such as long and short-term savings and other forms of entertainment. For most people, a yearly Walt Disney World vacation just isn't realistic. And this is great news for Disney, as they've found that the people who come more generally spend less. Recently, we've seen both Disneyland and Walt Disney World cut off the supply of their new annual passes to their guests, and it's for a fairly blatant reason. Season passes are mostly fan service. They provide very little benefit to a theme park beyond a more predictable income method when it comes time for renewals, but generally they run these at a loss. Their hope is, similar to a gym, that you will buy the annual pass but be in a situation where you can't attend the theme park because pass holders add to the crowds and they generally don't spend as much as those with day tickets or those staying at the resort. The reasoning behind this is that the theme park experience becomes less special and more mundane for those that go more often. Why eat in the park when you can just grab McDonald's on the way home or prepare your lunch before coming in? Pass holders are more likely to gawk at a price. But for those having a once-in-a-lifetime trip, they don't care. They're going to buy as much food as possible, stay in the nicest rooms on property, and buy all of the extras that make the trip easier to manage. You're only there once. Why bother thinking about money and instead just have fun? This is why Disney coming out of the pandemic doesn't really want pass holders around. They have an opportunity to start fresh, and the idea of that involves as little pass holders as possible. Unfortunately for Disney, the passes do provide consistent income, which the accountants like, but with their high prices, a unique reservation system with strict blockout dates, Walt Disney World annual passes being virtually only available to Florida residents, apart from the most expensive option, Disney was able to design a system that turned most people off the idea of getting an annual pass. Generally, a price rise should keep enough people at bay, but it can only get you so far. Even though multitudes of people complain about price hikes, between 2009 to 2019, US-based Disney theme park attendance rose from 69.5 to 87.3 million guests, a jump of almost 25.6%. despite the fact that the ticket price had risen almost 60% from $79 to $125 US. So if you can't stop them at the gate, what are your options? My parents and I used to frequent a marina where we went to an awesome Greek restaurant, and often they had a board showing the different boats for sale around the area. I promise that this is relevant. When looking at the board, you had your standard dollar prices, but all of the bigger boats said POR, which apparently stood for price on request. I was bothered by this. Why don't these boats have prices? And I wanted to know them, so I asked my dad what they'd likely be worth, and he responded with, "If you have to ask, you can't afford it." We're moving into this era for US-based Disney theme parks. You may have heard of the concept of vacation by spreadsheet. The idea that there are so many paid extras at Disney nowadays that if you want to carefully budget your trip, then you're going to need to brush up on your Excel skills. Genie Plus, transport to and from the airport, lightning lane, after hours events, paid experiences like building a lightsaber, park hopping, memory maker, and even magic bands are all additional costs on top of your trip, and that's not including food and drink. Mapping out all of this would be a nightmare and not the Disney experience that you want. But it's done intentionally, to push those penny pinchers out of the way to focus on those who are happy to just slap down a credit card and go. Some of these features even used to be free and were included in the ticket price if you stayed with them at a resort. But since they've been replaced by paid additions, things haven't gotten cheaper. They've just blatantly pushing those costs onto the guest. Similarly, things like extra magic hours, which were available to all guests staying at a Disney World resort and included an hour before open and 2 hours after closing for select parks exclusive to them, have been replaced for more acquisitive changes. Instead, it's been replaced with a flat 30 minutes before a park opens to help kickstart your day. But extended evening theme park hours have been changed so that you get 2 hours extra on select days, but only if you stay at a deluxe resort or villa, which start at around $476 US per average night excluding tax. That's a lot of money. This is perhaps one of the most egregious changes, considering that even Disney's value resorts used to get this for free just a few years ago. But it gets worse. Many of Disney's systems are intentionally designed to disadvantage those who are not utilizing their resorts, or additions such as Genie Plus. Whilst 30 minutes early doesn't seem like that much for a resort guest, it's a lot for somebody who is staying off property. Even if you're in front of the line as somebody who isn't staying at a resort, there is still a whole Walt Disney World worth of people who have gotten into the park before you. This means that there is a little chance of getting a few rides in before the park gets inundated with guests, as lines would have already formed for almost everything from attractions to Starbucks. Disney is sending the message that if you're not willing to pay, then they don't really want you there. And even with all of these changes to increase guest spending, Disney still announced further ticket price hikes in October, ranging from 3% to 8%, depending on the demand of the day that you're visiting, despite a majority of theme park perks still not running at full capacity due to the pandemic. We're starting to get a trickle of information regarding the return of things such as entertainment and spectaculars, but this is in spite of the price rises rather than being complimentary. Ultimately, and probably sadly, Disney aims to make sure that their theme park crowds manage themselves by ensuring that low-paying guests have a worse experience and thin themselves out. This leaves the parks with less guests, but more people who are willing to pay top dollar. This is probably bad news for those on the edge. There is a silver lining here. I know some people might not want to hear it, but you don't have to go to Disney. As it becomes more expensive and ultimately more exclusive, it provides other theme parks an opportunity to get access to guests that wouldn't usually visit them. Universal Studios Florida, for example, provides premium hotels with included unlimited express pass at a drastically reduced price compared to Walt Disney World. I promise that this isn't sponsored, even though it kind of sounds like it. Their hope is that people who no longer feel that they can fund that premium Disney World experience will instead jump over to their parks, where they'll be able to satisfy the same feeling of luxury in a theme park environment. Now, I'll be interested to see how this progresses. It probably won't always stay like this, especially with a third theme park on the way, but currently, the Universal Studios Florida resort is far more affordable than Disney, and that sort of competition is never a bad thing. Disney currently sits on a throne of hubris, and it seems that they can't be budged. They're happy to bark orders, and people are willing to accept them. But there's the concept of vote with your wallet. If you don't like these changes, then don't put up with them. Go elsewhere, try something different. I won't diss anybody's want to go to Disney. It's special for a lot of people, and there are those that can easily afford it. But if you're upset about the price hikes or changes to the tickets or resorts, then the only way that you can truly show that you don't agree with these changes is to go elsewhere. Now, if you want to keep this conversation going, I highly recommend checking out reviewtyme.com/forum, where you can talk with other ReviewTyme fans about what is happening in the world of theme parks. Even though we read every comment, some of them we don't want to read, but we still do, we can't always respond to them. But we do our best to ensure that we're engaged with every topic on our forum. But what do you think? Are Disney theme parks too expensive, and is that necessarily a bad thing? Are you excited to try something different, to go somewhere where you've never been to before, even if Disney theme parks are traditional to you? I'm excited to see what you say. For the home of all things theme parks, I'm Dom from ReviewTyme. Thanks for watching, liking, and subscribing. We'll see you next time.